Hey guys, before the video starts, I just wanted to let y'all know this is actually an excerpt from the latest episode of the Blue Milk Boys podcast, in which Spencer and I talked about 2017's Justice League pretty much ad nauseum. Everything from the original version and what we actually liked about the movie, and even speculating on the Snyder Cut. So, if you like this video and you want to hear the full podcast in its entirety, the link to all of the major platforms will be in the description below. Thanks.
I did enjoy this idea of the struggle of morality of resurrecting Superman. In that, first of all, if you bring him back, you don't know what he's gonna be like. He'll definitely be confused. He'll be pissed about something. So it's like you're trying to stop his evil, but you don't know if you're gonna create something that's even worse. Uh, so I enjoyed that dilemma, just that theme of that dilemma. That is something that it's not like when Thanos, when you snap everyone back, everyone comes back to normal. You're like literally like bringing him back from the dead, and that raises a lot of questions that was definitely talked about intensively in the movie.
Okay. So I was going to shit all over that, but then I kind of like started galaxy braining it a little bit. So Snyder like wrote the screenplay for this movie, right? That's kind of like a thing that like kind of is irrevocable about this movie, is that like the skeleton of this movie is Zack Snyder. Joss Whedon ended up directing it, and he made his fair share of changes. Like that's just evident. But I think like at its core, like this is still a Zack Snyder gig, like story wise. And what Zack Snyder does as a storyteller, as just based on my experience of what I've seen from him so far, but just like Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel, he plays around with concepts that are interesting, but I feel like he doesn't really fully dive into them as much as he should have to make them as impactful as he wants them to be. Because what you just said was very compelling. I feel like that would have been a very, very good plot point for this movie. But again, they spent like 10 minutes on it total. There was just not that big of a debate, and it didn't cause a big enough rift among the team. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like there is a debate about it. Like there is disagreement. There is strife about whether or not to resurrect Superman, but it doesn't ever get to a boiling point to where people are like legitimately ready to kind of like go at each other about it. You know what I'm saying? Like the Avengers,
Yeah.
like Captain America and Iron Man were kicking each other's ass over whether or not to create the Vision. And that movie stinks. And I still think that was a little more compelling than this. So that's the thing. That's my thing with Zack Snyder, is that he kind of like, he has got the right idea for a lot of things. Like that would have been really cool if they had just fleshed that out to the point where like Batman has to fucking fight Wonder Woman or something like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I agree. Like that would have been like, I see the structural foundation of that being cool. But again, I just think Snyder half bakes a lot of these. And then obviously Whedon comes in and he doesn't have the same vision as Snyder does, and then everything just becomes the big mess that it ended up being when it released in theaters.
Yeah, and that gets into the whole idea of how I would rate this movie, and just that for Steppenwolf would be gone, and that would just be like a much bigger part of what.
So who's your main villain? Is it Lex Luthor?
Yeah, I'd be fine with Lex Luthor. I'd be fine with any Earth-given villain that is of DC. Don't make this a planetary thing, or a galaxy thing, I should say. Like, let's keep it in home. You know.
I think because I don't know, because I feel like at that point you're going against what like is fundamental about the Justice League, because I think they formed together because like there was like galactic level shit that was gonna have to like warrant all of them coming together. You know what I mean?
It just depends. I'd have to really flesh out the whole like villain list and kind of choose something that I found the most interesting. But it would have to be enough where Diana would struggle with it, for sure, because otherwise she would just deal with it herself. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't have an exact answer for you. I wish I did, but I just think that those themes I was talking about, like the new symbol of peace and the morality of resurrection, should have been the main focus of the movie.
There are other minions of Darkseid I feel like you could have sent to that weren't Steppenwolf. Just the lamest villain. So I think I agree with you, is that like it could have been someone other than Steppenwolf, and you could have still had your little like Darkseid kind of tease.
No, for sure.
But yeah, like Steppenwolf stinks. All right, what else would you change? Because I feel
That
like
was
the stuff that you've liked so
amazing.
far, if
Mhm.
like I said, if we just fleshed that out a little more and dedicated more time to it instead of just like kind of fan servicey shit, like kind of rushing through the movie, I feel like this could have been a fantastic movie. It could have been a really, really good movie.
And that's kind of the idea of this too. But um, so yeah, the last thing, which also ties into like just what was just talking about, is I enjoyed Superman's mixed feelings about resurrection. I don't think it was executed fantastically, but I did enjoy that he didn't come back and was like, "Wow, guys, thank you so much. Like, let's get going here." You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like that. It was more like, "Holy shit, what is happening?" And also, it baseline the idea that how strong Superman was, which I think is really good. And I think they did a pretty good job of doing that. I love the scene where he hits Batman and he flies back into the car. I think it's the best action scene in the entire movie because it's the only time where you have a foundation of like understanding the power and also just being like, okay, that's a real car, and they actually did something to make that happen, and it's not all computerized.
um,
Um,
it really,
yeah,
like
and
I
then
said,
yeah,
it just goes back to what we've been saying. Like, there's so many good like building blocks here that if they just flesh them out a little more, just a tiny bit more for some of these, is all it would have taken. If you just dedicated 1 to 2 extra scenes to Superman just fucking trying to come to grips with the fact that he was dead and now he's not dead anymore, like that would have been really, really cool. But instead, like they whiff on the execution. Like, we obviously believe that they whiff to varying degrees, but I feel like the main point is that they kind of missed the mark, right?
no, for sure. I'm not saying that I think this is like the upper echelon of movie history. It's just those core values I think are really unique and something that we haven't seen out of superhero movies as of recent, and that's why they stuck with me so much.
So in essence, we agree on it. It's just that like you're more tolerant of the fact that they kind of didn't follow through all the way on it than I am.
Yeah, I enjoy the themes as basically as much as the movie.
Yeah, I like themes too. I just like when they're fully realized, you know.
No, I
Um,
understand.